we'll be talking about something quite important, electioneering finance, and its impact on the economy. Just like special occasions, it's equally something that happens mostly every 4 years in the country. What's its impact on the Nigerian economy? Now, Nigeria's elections rank among the most expensive in Africa. Political campaigns require billions of naira to fund rallies, media campaigns, logistics, and party structures. But where does this money come from, and what does it mean for the economy? Now, campaigns are in Nigeria financed through three main channels, really. State resources, incumbent politicians often develop public funds for campaign purposes. That's what is being said. However, private donations, while the individuals and businesses finance candidates in return for political favors, and in some cases foreign influence, external donations, sometimes shaping political narratives and policies. Of course, we have other things we'll look at into the conversation, but joining us virtually from Lagos State to discuss this is Muktar Mohammed, CEO Finance with Muktar. Good morning, Mr. Mohammed. Thank you for joining us on Business Daily this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
All right. So you heard my intro to the conversation. Where do you actually think the funds for electioneering comes from?
Well, I think that's a very difficult question to answer because, again, when you talk about electoral funds, it can come from the different sources. Ordinarily, according to the law, most of those funds are supposed to come from donor, and those donors are supposed to be made public. You cannot take money outside the shore of this country. But I think when you look at our own electoral campaign, we've not been able to implement some of those rules, especially when it comes to funding. Nobody can categorically say that INEC or INEC or anybody can categorically say where the fundings are coming from, where political parties get their funding. Unlike developed nations, where you know who is the highest donor for this party. So I think it's an issue that INEC need to address. To know where this funding comes from, but most individuals will tell you that we personally bankroll our electoral campaign. Even Mr. President said it some time ago that he personally bankrolled his electoral campaign, that nobody actually gave him anything. So definitely nobody can dictate to him. So, but again, that shows you where we are politically and structural wise in terms of electoral campaign. Because if you look at a state, if you look like countries that we try to emulate, at the United States, like United Kingdom, their electoral campaign is also very, very expensive. But you could trace who is the donor, who gave this, who gave that, and sometimes this also reflects in their tax return. To say, oh, we're donor here and there. So, but in Nigeria, that is not obtainable. So I think that's where we really get the challenge. So most electoral campaigns are normally funded by the candidate through maybe sometimes through the help of friends. But mostly, if you look at them, through the help of friends and also through Godfather. So that's why you have issues when you say, look, I bankroll your electoral campaign. You didn't bring it down. But in developed nation, party members contribute levies, contribute fee, and that is what is used for the electoral campaign, and that is why the party becomes supreme. But in Nigeria, that is not obtainable.
Okay, Mr. Mohammed, we'll continue the conversation. And since we've started this way, let's go look at this report by Noel Sampson talking about regulating political financing.
The report highlights that only major political parties accounted for bulk of these expenditures, leaving smaller parties struggling with limited resources. A deeper analysis of individual candidates' expenditures reveals that only a handful of candidates possess the financial resources to run competitive campaigns, raising concerns about the fairness of the electoral process. With the Anambra State governorship election approaching, the need to ensure a level playing field for all participants has got many asking how fairness can be achieved.
I think what we need to do is, since the laws are there, let us try as much as possible to see how we can adhere to this law, and anybody who violates this law should be heavily penalized. I think that is the only way we can, because we need to sanitize our electoral process.
We have a law already that provides regulation on how much, limits on how much candidates can spend for each elections. But obviously, that is not being enforced. And I do believe that we have an opportunity now with the current electoral reform process. For one, a political party regulations commission to be established. Second is the Electoral Offences Commission, because parties breaching the candidates and parties breaching the expenses limit in the Electoral Act is an electoral offence.
So it's about having a whole gamut of attitudinal, ethical reforms for people, and this is where our religious leaders may come in, if they will listen to them anyway, because people will say politics and morality are oil and water, they don't mix. So how do you deal with this? I still believe our anti-corruption agencies and our security agencies have to lead the way, as well as our judicial system.
So our finding shows that we need to do more in terms of regulation. One of the things we have seen is that even over the years, the ceiling that has been provided by the Constitution, by the Electoral Act and other legal framework has not been adhered to. However, what happened is nothing happens and then everything keep going on. So to minimize this monster is that we need to enforce regulation.
The Chairman House of Representatives Committee on Electoral Matters, Adebayo Balogun, outlines the step the House is taking to regulate political financing.
Yes, we are amending what defines, yes. But the issue is, how do you really define the spending? How do you even capture all the spending? The spending you spend every day, the money you spend every day, day-to-day spending that you cannot even easily track. Ordinary, even at the lower level as a councillor, within your area, when you enter a canteen, everybody wants you to pay for them. Where do you write all this? People that pay on your behalf, that spend money on your behalf, how do you even know? Someone will come to you maybe a year after the election and look at the souvenir printed during your election. You are not even aware. So these are all these things. So how do we want to, how are we going to present it in a way that we'll be able to be specific? That, okay, these are the areas we will consider as electoral spending. Or these are the other things we are doing just outside the electoral process. So it's still a very dicey thing. But by the time we start from somewhere, then we start redefining what will be captured.
It is widely acknowledged that political parties play a crucial role in sustaining democracy with financial resources.
We can see from that package, that story, that one of the things we're talking about has been actually expounded upon there. We're talking about the spendings beyond what the electioneers are even spending and even what the people spend on their behalf. And on that note, we'll go straight into this question, Mr. Mohammed, if you're still with us. It says, how does excessive election spending impact Nigeria's economic stability in the long run?
Well, the good thing about it is that Nigeria is an economy that's largely driven by the informal sector. People that relatively enjoy patronage during electoral campaign is the informal sector, which is the most vibrant sector of the Nigerian economy. Nigerian economy is largely run by that sector. And then secondly, the Nigerian electoral campaign is very expensive, just like what you said. And again, our electoral campaign also is largely driven by cash. So there's a lot of patronage for the people in those sectors, that's why the informal sector. And when you talk about the informal sector, you're talking about the transporters. They are being patronized by the politicians, also by INEC, whether waterway, whether air transport, whether land transport. If you look at the printers, those that print card, banner, and that, they are also being patronized. Even the creative industry, to the musicians, the artisans, everybody seems to have one role or the other. But if you look at it, it's mostly for the informal sector. Even the market woman, the woman that is selling food on the electoral campaign, you have a lot of people come, they sell food on those days. Sometimes the politician hire them to supply food to everybody that will be there. So for me, it's one of the most lucrative time for them. But how sustainable and stability, like you say, how sustainable it is, that is where the challenge is. And you know that it comes once in four years. And so after that, we normally don't see those kind of patronage again, mostly for some sector, for some, especially some sector that's largely doing like the printing, those media sector, whether print, electronic, or print or electronic media. You don't see them have those kind of patronage from the politicians or from the electorate that they used to have. So you see a slowdown in those businesses, especially after the electoral campaign.
All right, now, so do we think that an increased political spending can lead to positive outcomes, economic outcomes, such as job creation during elections? You've already mentioned some of that, printing and creative works. Do we think this can actually help and sustain them too after the elections?
Sustain them after the election, I think that's a bigger problem. But it actually do help. It do help. Yeah, like I said, it provide employment for them, it help them. But how sustainable it is, that's the challenge. But again, some people have used that as a stepping stone to start their own businesses, expand their businesses during this electoral campaign. After they fail because of the kind of money they make during those periods, they tend to expand. Some of them to have investments. Some of them tend to. There's a lot of things that they do that in the long term is profitable to them as an individual and to their businesses. But again, it's a short-term measure, so it all depends on how much time, how much you are able to get and how well you are able to manage it after the electoral campaign, knowing that the next time you might get such a patronage again is 4 years from now.
All right, now, we see inflation spikes during election years. Why is that so?
Because of, like I said, liquidity is spreading around. There's so much money in circulation during those periods, and but again, like I said, that sector, Nigeria economy is largely driven by the informal sector, and the informal sector is largely driven by cash. And that's why like I said during my introduction when I came in, I said the SME, the informal sector seems to benefit. And that's why you see that during the electoral campaign, they seems to have more patronage because it's largely driven by cash. If you take MBS, Nigerian Bureau of Statistics data, during the election and after election, you will see that there was a lot of patronage during the election, but after election, you see those patronage has reduced. So, and it's largely driven by cash. So that has not helped inflation.
So this spending, what does it contribute to exchange rate fluctuations?
The challenge with that, I think that has to do with the larger political class. Now, most of them also have this currency in FX, in dollars, and they also tend to bring it and change it to naira. So then you have this fund, because sometimes they are doing that also to escape the INEC fine or INEC coming hard on them. That's why you say, and I listened to one of them that said I think the chairman of the House Committee on the party, or the chairman of the committee, saying that you don't even know how to capture some of this electoral campaign funds. So I think largely that is driven by the political class. During those periods, there's a lot of the good thing about it is that there's a lot of dollars trying to pursue so much of little of naira. So you tend to see that the naira gain during political electoral campaign, because we have a lot of dollars circulating the economy during the electoral campaign rather than having naira. So definitely during this period, the exchange rate is quite very stable, and sometimes the naira is better than the dollar during this electoral campaign times.
All right, what can the apex bank in our country, that's the CBN, what can they do to stabilize the economy during election cycles?
I think they can only do what they want to do, and that is to stabilize that. You see, they are using a stick. They reduce inflation. I mean, they reduce liquidity in the system. They try to go through the further through Economic and Financial Crime Commission. They tend to work together to see how they can get some of these people having illicit fund into electoral campaign. But I don't think there's much they can do. Like I said, those sectors that really strive and that are the life wire of the Nigerian economy thrive during electoral campaign, because cash is being taken out of the system. Cash is taken out of the system, and that is what helped their business. So it's apparently very difficult for them to really do anything. The only place that it lies to do is on the security, the security, to see how they can arrest people that are having some of those whether in dollars or naira that are distributing to electorates to vote for them. I think that's what. But For the CBN, they can only use the necessary monetary tool, which is reducing liquidity in the system. And when you do that, you are killing a very vibrant sector of your Nigerian economy.
All right, let's get to investments. We see some sort of business delaying investments during elections. How does the political uncertainty affect foreign direct investments to the country?
I think that is huge. It does, because again, you look at the political party, we don't have an ideology of a political party to say, okay, if this political party comes to power, this is what is obtainable.
Yes.
This is the sector that will strive. This is, so we don't have that. So what they now look, they look at the president and they begin to say, what will he be able to do? How will he go to be? But unfortunately, when that ideology is not there, you see a lot of foreign investors try to withdraw their funding during the electoral campaign to see what is the policy drive. Then before they begin to look at if we want to come back. And this is largely driven because we don't have strong institutions, because they are also afraid that there might be a project they invest in, especially foreign direct investors. When they invest in a particular project for they want to be there for a long time, and they realize that election is coming, they don't want to be part of that project. Why do they don't want to be part of the project? Because they are not sure there will be continuity, because of the structural challenges that we have in Nigeria. When a new administration comes to power, it tends to destroy everything the old administration put in place. There's no continuity in business, and that does not help foreign direct investors to want to be in your country until after election, and then they want to do a short time deal, knowing that you'll be there for 4 years. Then so they will look at your policy, what they expect from you in this 4 years. They use that to invest into the economy.
So what can we do as a country to actually assure investors of stability during and after elections?
I think what we can do as a country is we have to have structures. We have to see continuity in government. That is the only thing that we can do as a country to definitely try for investors into our economy during electoral campaign. And then we also have to tell the politicians not to overheat the system at that period, because there seems to be a lot of apprehensive, a lot of fear, that's why also that's on that thing. Foreign investors don't want to come to an environment that is born with a lot of fear during the electoral campaign or during the electoral year. And that has been the bane of Nigeria. We have not changed about it, even after we have enjoyed conservative democracy for some time. During the electoral campaign, it seems to be like all hell will be let loose. So I think that is one area we need to deal with, making sure that elections come and go. People are not asked to sit at home because they are going to vote for an election. I mean, Ghana here doesn't even do that. Everybody can go from the place of work and vote and come back. So I think those are part of the things we should begin to look at.
Yes. When Ghana had the elections in December 7 here, they still actually went to work while they were doing their elections. But you said something earlier, which was about continuity. When you say continuity, are you talking about continuity of projects, whether it be of the same party or not, or continuity of party?
I think continuity of project and policies.
Okay.
There's one thing to have a project that is ongoing. There's also to have a policy that will drive expansion from that project. So what we see is that you have continuity sometime in project, but in terms of policy, it differs. And so foreign investor want, if you make a particular policy, especially when it comes to trade and investment, you don't just come in and change it at the middle of the way because you are a new administration. They like continuity. They want to see that continuity. That is what will drive them to do more investment in your country.
Okay. All right. Now, have we seen any sort of correlation between election periods and the stock market trends in Nigeria?
Well, during election period, the stock market seems to elude during election period. You see the stock market, there's not so much of activities there. Like I said, foreign investors don't want to play the market at that time. Indigenous investors also are sitting at the fence, not knowing the direction, who will win, and if after I win, what will be this policy. I think the stock market normally suffers during the election period. It seems to be void of liquidity and also void of activities, because everybody seems to be waiting. What is the next line of action if the president comes in, especially when it's an incumbent? Will the incumbent leave? Will there be problem? So the stock market relatively during those periods are always down.
All right. So let's look at now. Elections are over. How can the elected and non-elected officials recover from the excessive spending they've done without burdening the economy?
Unfortunately, it's not easy to recover, especially when you lost the election. And if you win the election, that's a challenge because you sponsor yourself, then you want to recoup your money, and that's where corruption comes to play. So I think, like I said, it's because of lack of structure, and this structure is lack of political structure to really drive a party. Let it be known that the party has particular people that sponsor them. So the individual that is coming there is coming directly under the party under the structure of the party without really spending much of his own money. That's the only way we can drive that. We have to do it. Be able to achieve that based on the question you just asked.
All right, now, so last question in this conversation. Do economic, or rather the election promises, always translate to economic development, or they're just a campaign rhetoric?
I know you can answer that question yourself. Sometimes they know what we want to hear. They tell us, because you see, when the politician comes to have election with Nigerians, they only say one thing: oh, we build infrastructure, we make sure you have food, we provide employment, we make sure we build on security. So it's same of same, but at the end of the day, nothing seems to change. But you also give credit that there could be changes in some states, even the federal, in the president, but you don't see that holistic change in every aspect of Nigeria economy. Or you see pocket of change left, center, and right. Yes, they are still there, but again, you are not seeing this kind of changes that you really expect, especially based on their campaign promises. It's always difficult to relate, coordinate between the campaign promises and what they are able to achieve. And the man that is campaigning, at the time they are campaigning, they don't care who you are. They can come to your street, they can come to your house. They're not coming with security. But immediately they get elected, you see security apparatus all around them, so people cannot even have access to them. So I think you know that electoral promises and the after the election doesn't seem to correlate at all.
Okay. All right, now, thank you for joining us on this conversation. We'll go on a short break, and when we come back, we're looking at the export trade policy. Still with us is Mr. Mohammed. Do stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Business Daily on Trust TV. Earlier, we discussed about electioneering financing in Nigeria, its impact. Now, we're going to another conversation. This last month, actually, the government was talking about export rates, and introduced an export rate employment levy bill, which required organizations employing export rate workers to pay an annual levy of $15,000 for directors and $10,000 for export rate employees. And the aim and the goal is to encourage foreign companies to hire more Nigerians. And yes, we have Nigerians who are qualified for these jobs. Now, still with me to discuss what we're expecting our other guests is Dr. Muktar Mohammed. Now, Dr. Muktar Mohammed, I'm sure you've heard about this export rate policy by the government. What do you make of it?
Well, every economy in the world has one depend on one expatriate, because nobody is an island of itself. And sometimes that's why those days in the United States used to have a green card policy to get more people into their economy that will help develop their economy also. Expatriate itself is not a bad policy, but again, you have to also, in knowing that when expatriates are coming in, not that they are coming to collect the local job, they are coming also to add value. And at the end of the day, they are training the locals to be able to handle this job, because you don't expect to continuously have expatriates running your economy. I think that's where the challenge is. But again, if you really you don't want to have expatriates running your economy, then you have to invest in that sector of your economy educationally to be able to bring people that also will be able to manage that sector of the economy. I think that is where the challenge is. But expatriates itself, in any economy in the world, they are allowed. Most times, these countries are not being paid by the when they are coming in. They are not the one to pay that, but it's the companies that are bringing them in. So why people are complaining is, if you tell a company to bring in an expatriate and they are paying X amount of this and they are doing a project, that means the cost of that payment will be also passed along. And again, that means you also endangering your own countrymen. If they have to go to other countries to work, then those countries will do what we call reciprocal gesture by also telling your own expatriates to pay. because is at the moment when you look at that expatriate policy as it stands today in Nigeria.
Okay, I see that we're being trying to join by Adewale Smart Oyerinde, who is the Director General of NECA. NECA is the Nigerian Employees Consultative Association. But while we're still waiting for that to work out properly, Mr. Mohammed, let's talk about how does this policy align with Nigeria's long-term economic goal?
Well, in terms of long-term economic gain, I think we are looking at this policy to build skill labor in particular sector. Like I said, when they come in there, they're not just coming in, but because when they finish, they will have to go with all their knowledge to look for the need to be perfect in Nigeria. Washington will definitely run this economy. So, but again, like I said, in any economy, you don't give it to the hands of expatriates. You also have to know how to manage it. And there's a certain quota, and there's some certain sectors that you say, look, in this sector, we can only accept X amount of percentage of expatriates. But when you look at the Nigerian context as it stands now, some sector, and those sectors are the life wire of the Nigerian economy, especially the oil and gas sector, largely driven by expatriates. And also sometimes you look at those companies, especially companies that are from Asia, run by the Chinese, you realize that those people they are bringing in here does not even have this required qualification for them to come in our country as our experts. So that is where the challenge is.
Okay, now you keep on mentioning sectors. Can you give us an idea of some of these sectors that actually require expatriates to function?
The oil and gas sector, like I said,
yes,
they require a lot of expatriates to function because of that space is evolving, technology is evolving day by day, and so you see a lot of people coming into that sector. What we now call the green economy, the maritime sector also is one sector that attracts a lot of expatriates because you are talking about ships, you're talking about cargo, and you don't see that also much Nigeria not a hub for manufacturing of ships or cargo for those for that sector of the economy. The aviation sector also, because of the kind of we don't have the kind of required funds that we have. They have what we call the lease agreement, whereby these companies bring in their aircraft, they are operated by foreigners, or they are owned by Nigeria for a particular time, because the Nigerian owners have not yet really acquire those aircrafts.
Oh, I see. I knew you were going to go to aviation. I was going to say I've been opportune to enter flights where they're mostly flown by Nigerian pilots, but then you've given us context as to why the aviation sector would need expatriates more. Now, are there any industries where the expatriate quotas should be relaxed due to lack of local expertise?
Yes, I think construction. Sometimes the construction sector mostly. I think we have enough of experts to run that sector. If you go about these days and you have been seeing called Nigerian infrastructural development, it's ongoing. Then if you come to Lagos and you see the Calabar coastal road, you realize that a lot of foreigners are doing the shoot. But I think we have enough Nigerians to be able to build those roads. Let me give you an example. Before now, people would think that Nigerian cannot build a refinery. Dangote refinery was built wholly by Nigerians. That tells you that if given the opportunity, the training, and in the right environment, we can do more. So, but for me, the construction sector and even the oil and gas sector, like I just told you about Dangote refinery, was wholly built by Nigeria. But we need to give them the enabling environment. We need to have the right Nigerians to do that business, not because, one person here, one person here. And if you have some companies, why they are so much particular getting expatriates is because of the lack of structure that we have, whereby we are not able to give job to people that are really suitable for it, but because of who they know, they get the job.
Okay, all right. Now we have now been joined by Mr. Adewale Smart Oyerinde, who is the DG of the Nigerian Executive. Okay, apparently we've lost him again. Hopefully he joins us soon to continue the conversation. We'd like to hear from the Employers Consultative Association what they think about this policy by the government. It's yet to be implemented. August is actually the timeline for that. But let's continue on our conversation now. Do we have any feel of how the multinational companies are reacting to this? Hopefully, Mr. Oyorinde will answer that question for us when he comes on board. Now, Mr. Mohammed, could stricter export trade regulations discourage FDIs, foreign direct investments into the country?
It does, depending on the sector. Like I said, if I'm investing billions of dollars into your oil and gas sector, I know you don't have all the expatriates to run that sector. So I would likely want to come in with a lot of expatriates based on the fund, based on the new technology that I think your own people have not been trained in it. So that for me is a major challenge. And if you're telling me no, you cannot do that. That is that nobody wants to invest this money and let this money go down the drain. That for me is a major challenge. But again, it all depends on the sector that they are really in. That's where the whole challenges come in. But there are other sectors that you know that okay, as a foreign direct investor, I don't need, if you are bringing in just funds to invest in equity market, mutual fund, and you know that you don't need to come in with your own expertise. Wherever you are, you can do that. So it's a different for those kind of investment. You don't want them to come in with expertise. So it depends, and even like I said about the engineering sector, construction, and sometimes they want to come with their own expertise. Because before now, we used to build roads with bitumen. But these days, you've seen that we have moved from that space now. We build roads using cements. So, and some of these technologies are actually coming from outside the shore of this country, not really from here. So they might need those expertise to come in because we are not evolving as a nation when it comes to training of our skill or unskilled people to take advantage of the latest technology. You and I know why that is a challenge. It's because of lack of infrastructure, lack of infrastructure. So we don't see, and lack of that developmental educational processes whereby education is evolving with time. But if you look at the Nigerian curriculum, education has not really evolved with time of what we are doing presently or what the world is at the moment.
All right, so I'd like us to go back a bit. Let's go back a bit and look at the impact of export rates on the economy. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Oftentimes they're being paid in dollars. How does that impact the economy, really?
Definitely, it doesn't work well for the economy when you have larger percentage of your people being paid. A particular nation, nationalized, when they come to Nigeria, they don't want their salary to be paid even here. They just take a little of it and they tell to pay the remaining sum of in terms of dollar into their economy. And with a country like Nigeria that even need those effects to stabilize their economy, is not a good thing for us. That means they're actually benefiting from our economy and investing the money in their own economy. So I think in the short term, in the long term, that is a major challenge. But the beauty is that you can't get everything, so you need to take some losses somewhere. So if these people are coming in to bring in the new technology, to be able to have a memorandum of understanding that okay, they are going to be here for 5 years to train Nigerians so that Nigerians will be able to handle that processes when they are gone, then I think it's a win-win situation.
Okay, so we're seeing cases now when it comes to how it affects we the people in Nigeria. We see where employers will hire someone and pay them quite a lot of money, thousands and thousands of dollars. And then this same person passes off this same information to you or same knowledge to you. And then when it's time to pay you, the disparity is out of the water. How, because, how does this help the common man? He's going to say, why bother, why learn this skill if you're not going to pay me at least half of what you're paying this person?
I think that's a mindset. That's a mindset because again, if they are paying somebody high, and that should be an encouragement for you to say, okay, I will develop these skills so that they can pay me better. And I'm sure no employer of labor will want to pay the foreigner so much and pay the local, because they know that averagely, if the local is being trained and the local have the same technology, it's going to cost him less than paying an expatriate. So I think that should be an encouragement for those people in those sectors to say, okay, I want to develop myself so that we don't have these foreigners taking this lucrative, juicy job from us. If you are playing at a bad level, you are playing in the aviation sector, you are playing in the oil and gas sector. But like you said, you can see that in the aviation sector, is an exception for those leasing agreements where you have foreign pilots and sometimes you have foreign engineers. You don't even have foreign crew members unless it's internationally. Then you see a mix between the foreign and the Nigerian because of the leasing agreement. You can see that in the aviation sector, there seems to be a shift gradually, because if you are flying local flight before now, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, a local flight are mainly flew by foreigners. You see them the way they talk. But these days, if you fly local flight, you realize that they are largely driven by Nigerians. So that tells you that you have to, you can't say because you're in Nigeria, because we want to satisfy them as a Nigeria, they don't have the skill, they should come and be flying. You know what, that portrays danger for anybody that will be on that flight.
All right, thank you so much. We need to actually wrap up the conversation right now so that we could go for the day. It's been a pleasure having you on the conversation, Mr. Muktar Mohammed, discussing with us earlier on the electioneering financing in Nigeria, its impact on businesses and the economy. And right now, we just finished talking about the expatriate policy, the employers' expatriate levy coming in August, where the government is asking people that if you're going to hire expatriates, you have to pay a certain levy for directors and employees. Thank you so much for having us, or rather for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, that's the much we have for you today on Business Daily. I hope you've come to understand how election financing impacts the economy and maybe better position yourself for the next election cycle. And of course, how expatriates, what they bring to the country and how it impacts the economy as well. That's the much we have today. For more news, programs, and documentaries, please follow us on our YouTube channel and social media platforms. I am Chiamaka Nwafor. Bye for now.